The first time Mei Lin heard Elias Ward call her family, a man was standing on his porch with a bill of sale in his hand. He wore clean city gloves in a yard made of dust. He smiled like the law already belonged to him. Behind Mei, 6-year-old Nora hid her face in Mei's skirt, clutching the blue silk as if it were the only safe thing left in the world. The man lifted the papers and said, "The transfer was never finished. I have come to collect the asset." Mei did not know every English word, but she knew that one. Asset. For 2 months, the town of Mercy Flats had treated her like a mistake that had arrived in a crate. They stared at her hair, her food, her silence, her hands. They whispered that Elias had paid for a wife because no decent woman would marry a widower who had forgotten how to smile. And for one terrible second, Mei wondered if they were right. Because Elias said nothing. He only stood in the yard, one hand resting on the handle of the chopping axe, his face carved from the same hard gray wood as the house behind him. Then the man with the papers took one step toward her. And Elias moved. But to understand why that single step changed everything, you have to go back to the morning Mei became a wife in a language she barely understood. The wedding did not happen in a church. Mercy Flats had a church, but the preacher refused to open it for a transaction from the coast. So the ceremony was held in the county office, between a locked gun cabinet and a wall of wanted posters curling at the edges. Mei stood before the clerk in a blue silk AOQ embroidered with silver plum blossoms. It was not a wedding dress. It was the last beautiful garment her mother had packed before the debt men came. In San Francisco, the silk had made her look like a daughter. In Mercy Flats, it made her look like evidence. Men leaned in the doorway to stare. Women pretended not to stare and did it more cruelly. Someone coughed the word, cargo. Someone else said Elias had finally ordered a housekeeper from the railroad. Mei kept her eyes on the ink stain near the clerk's thumb. Beside her stood Elias Ward, broad-shouldered, sunburned, and silent. He was younger than his grief made him look. His beard was untrimmed. His coat had been brushed clean but still carried the smell of horses, smoke, and sleepless nights. He had paid a broker in San Francisco to arrange the marriage. That was the fact everyone could see. What they could not see was the letter folded inside Elias's vest pocket, the one that said his daughter had stopped speaking after her mother's fever, and that he needed a woman in the house before the winter took what was left of them. He did not look at Mei like a man pleased with a purchase. He hardly looked at her at all. That was somehow worse. The clerk read the vows. Elias answered in a voice so low it barely crossed the room. Mei repeated the sound she had been taught on the train. The words felt like stones in her mouth. Wife. Obey. Household. Ward. A small girl sat on a bench beneath the wanted posters, swinging her feet without making a sound. Nora. Elias's daughter watched Mei with huge, solemn eyes. Not hateful. Not kind. Just open, the way children look at a closed box they are not sure they are allowed to touch. When the clerk stamped the paper, the sound cracked through the room like a judge's hammer. And just like that, Mei belongs to a man whose name still felt foreign in her mind. The road to the Ward homestead stretched through dry Wyoming grass and wind-scoured hills. Elias rode ahead on a bay horse. Mei sat stiffly in the wagon, one hand gripping the side rail, the other pressed to the small cloth bundle in her lap. Inside the bundle were 3 things: a packet of tea, 2 porcelain bowls wrapped in linen, and a narrow kitchen knife her mother had pressed into her palm with shaking fingers.
Not for anger, her mother had whispered, for surviving. The land rolled past in colors Mei did not trust: pale grass, white sky, black birds circling above cattle bones. She had come from crowded streets, wet fog, voices layered over voices. This place was so empty it seemed to have swallowed sound. Elias did not speak. Nora sat between them, peeking at Mei whenever she thought no one noticed. By noon, Mei's lips were split from thirst. She did not ask for water. She had learned early that asking made some men feel powerful. Elias stopped the wagon anyway. Without turning it into kindness, without softening his face, he handed her a tin cup from the canteen. Their fingers touched. His hands were rough, cracked at the knuckles, and warm from the rains. Mei drank. It was not tenderness, but it was proof he understood she was alive. By sundown, the homestead appeared in a shallow valley like something the wind had tried to erase. A plank house leaned against the weather. A small barn slumped nearby. The yard was bare except for a chopping block, a rusted pump, and a line of children's dresses stiffening in the dust. Elias helped Mei down from the wagon the way a man unloads something fragile he does not know where to put. "House is there," he said. It was the first full sentence he had given her. Inside, the air held a dead woman's name. Clara Ward was everywhere. In the quilt folded over the bed, in the cracked comb near the wash basin, in the blue cup on the shelf with a chip at the rim. Dust had settled over her things, but grief had settled deeper. Mei stood in the doorway and understood the truth. She had not entered a home. She had entered an absence. Elias set her trunk beside the wall. "Well's out back. Stove draws bad unless the wind's north." Then he left for the barn. No welcome. No explanation. No cruelty either. Just a door swinging open and shut between two strangers. Mei remained in the center of the room until a small shape appeared in the bedroom doorway. Nora held a rag doll by one arm. Her hair was pale and tangled. Her face was thin in the serious way of children who have seen adults break and know not to ask too many questions. She walked toward Mei one careful step at a time. Mei braced herself. But Nora only reached out and touched the edge of the blue silk sleeve. Her fingers traced a silver blossom. "It looks like night water," Nora whispered. Mei did not understand all the words, but she understood the voice. Nora turned toward the open door and called, "Pa." Elias appeared at once, as if he had been waiting for the first disaster. "What?" Nora kept her fingers on Mei's sleeve. "She's pretty." The house went still. Elias looked at his daughter, then at Mei, then away. Something moved across his face too quickly to name. "Mind your manners," he muttered. But he did not correct her. He did not tell Nora to step back. And that tiny mercy settled inside Mei like a coal that refused to die. That night, Mei opened her trunk and took out the porcelain bowls. She washed them at the pump until her hands ached from the cold. Then she scrubbed one half of the kitchen table clean, scraping away old grease, dust, and months of sorrow. She did not try to replace Clara. She only cleared a space where Mei Lin could exist. Elias came in after dark and stopped when he saw the table. One side was still gray with neglect. The other side showed pale wood beneath the grime. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he washed his hands and sat down. They ate in silence. Elias with a dented fork and cold beans. Mei with chopsticks and rice from her bundle. Nora watched the chopsticks with the intense concentration of a child watching magic. No one thanked anyone. No one smiled. But for the first time since the county clerk's stamp hit the paper, Mei felt the room make a small place for her. The town tried to take that place away a week later. Elias needed flour, coffee, lamp oil, and nails. He told Mei to stay in the wagon when they reached Mercy Flats, but Nora saw a jar of striped candy in the mercantile window and begged until his jaw tightened. "Stay close," he said. Inside the store, every sound sharpened. The bell above the door, the creak of floorboards, the sudden silence of men pretending they had not been speaking about her. Amos Pike, the storekeeper, leaned on the counter with both hands and looked Mei up and down like he was counting flaws. "So that's the coast bride," he said. "Does she come with instructions, Ward, Or do you just point her at the stove? A few men laughed. Elias stacked flour and coffee on the counter. Add it to the account. Pike's smile widened. You sure Clara would want a foreign woman touching her child? The name hit the room like a dropped lantern. Elias did not shout. He reached across the counter, grabbed Pike by the collar, and pulled him so close their noses nearly touched. You don't put Clara's name in your mouth, Elias said. And you don't speak about my wife like freight. My wife. Mei understood those words. She felt them land before she could decide what to do with them. Pike's face went blotchy. The men stopped laughing. Nora slipped her small hand into Mei's and held on so tightly it hurt. Elias released the storekeeper, paid in coins, and walked them out while the whole town stared. On the wagon ride home, he said nothing. But when the wind lifted dust from the road, he shifted his body so it struck his coat before it reached Mei's face. That night, Mei cooked the first meal that smelled like memory. She used wild onions from the creek bank, a thumb of ginger saved from her bundle, rice, and the little dried fish she had been afraid to finish. The kitchen filled with steam, salt, and heat. Elias stared at the bowl she set before him. Nora picked up chopsticks with both hands and failed immediately. Show me, she demanded. Mei guided the girl's fingers. Nora giggled. Elias tried once, scowled at the sticks as if they had insulted him, and went back to his fork. But he ate every grain. After supper, Nora asked the question no adult had dared to touch. Pa, do you still miss Mama? Elias went still, the kind of stillness that comes before something breaks. Every day, he said. Nora looked at Mei. Does she miss somebody too? Mei did not know the words to answer, so she lowered her eyes. That was enough. Elias saw it. For the first time, he truly looked at her not as a problem brought into his house, not as a bargain struck in desperation, but as a person standing inside her own ruin. Grief became the first language they shared. The weeks changed slowly after that. Nora began bringing Mei small treasures. A smooth stone, a bird feather, a button shaped like a star. Mei taught her how to rinse rice until the water ran clear. Elias repaired the broken hinge on Mei's trunk without mentioning it. Mei mended the tear in his work shirt and left it folded by the stove. Their kindnesses were quiet, almost stubbornly hidden, but they gathered. A cup of water left near the garden. A shawl hung by the door before a cold morning. A child's laughter returning one piece at a time. Then, on a yellow afternoon, when the house finally smelled of ginger and wood smoke instead of only dust, the rider came. Mei saw him before Elias did. A black horse, a city saddle, a man sitting too straight for a country road. Her stomach turned to ice. Bennett Lau had arranged the marriage in San Francisco. He was the man who had translated her family's debt into numbers, then numbers into a journey, then a journey into Elias Ward's signature. He had never raised his voice. He had never needed to. His power lived in ink. Elias stepped onto the porch, wiping his hands on a rag. You know him. Mei could not answer. Lau dismounted with a smile so polished it looked sharpened. Mr. Ward, he said, I apologize for the intrusion. A clerical difficulty has followed your purchase. Elias's face hardened. No purchase here. Lau gave a small laugh. Let us not become sentimental. The original payment covered transport and placement. It did not cover the remaining family obligation, language fees, lodging advances, or market adjustment. He lifted a folded document. Until those are paid, the woman remains recoverable property. Recoverable. Mei's chest tightened until she could not breathe. Nora pressed against her side. Elias's eyes moved from the paper to Mei. His expression gave away nothing. That was the worst part. For one suspended second, every whisper in Mercy Flats came back. Cargo, housekeeper, asset, coast bride, bought woman. Maybe Elias had defended her in town because Pike had insulted his pride. Maybe my wife was only a word a man used for property no one else was allowed to damage. Lao saw the silence and smiled. You are a practical man, he said. Pay the balance, or I take her back and resell the contract elsewhere. A durable woman like this will not be difficult to place. Then he looked at Mei for the first time. Come down. She did not move. Lao took one step toward the porch. Elias stepped in front of him. It was not dramatic. No drawn gun. No shouted challenge. Just a tired farmer moving his body between a predator and his door. She is not inventory, Elias said. Lao's smile thinned. The document says otherwise. Then the document lies. This is a Chinese matter. Elias's voice dropped. She sleeps under my roof. She feeds my child. She stands on my land. That makes it my matter. Lao's eyes flicked to the axe by the chopping block. You threaten a licensed broker. Elias took one more step forward.
The whole yard seemed to hold its breath. I am telling a stranger to leave my family alone. Family. Mei felt the word strike through her like pain and warmth at the same time. Lao's control cracked. You think one frontier marriage paper defeats debt? No, Elias said. I think you came here because you expected a lonely man to pay for shame. But there is none for sale. Lao's gloved fingers tightened around the document. There are men in San Francisco who will hear of this. Then write them, Elias said, and tell them the next man who steps onto this porch to collect my wife will leave without teeth, papers, or pride. Lao stared at him. The wind moved dust across the yard. Nora's hand trembled in Mei's skirt. Somewhere in the barn, a horse stamped once. Then Bennett Lao folded his papers with shaking precision, mounted his horse, and rode away faster than dignity allowed. Elias did not turn until the rider had vanished behind the low ridge. When he finally faced Mei, the danger was gone, but something harder remained. Truth. He climbed the porch steps slowly. Mei stood frozen, unsure what the moment required. Gratitude. Obedience. Tears. English words she did not have. Elias lifted his hand. Mei flinched. The movement was small, but he saw it. His hand stopped in the air. Shame crossed his face so plainly it stripped the hardness from him. He lowered his arm, careful now, as if the space between them belonged to her. I'm not him, he said. Mei did not know if he meant Lao, or Pike, or every man who had ever made a paper cage and called it order. Then Elias reached into his vest and pulled out the folded marriage contract from the county office. He looked at it for a long time. This paper may keep the law quiet, he said. But it doesn't make you mine. He set the paper on the porch rail between them. You are not mine because I paid. You are here because you are here. And if you choose to stay, nobody takes you. Mei understood only pieces. But she understood choose. She understood stay. And she understood the way he stepped back after saying it, leaving the porch open, leaving the air unclaimed. That night, supper was quieter than any meal before it. Not empty quiet. Not angry quiet. A different quiet, the kind that comes after a storm. When everyone is listening to see if the roof will hold. Elias brought in Lao's discarded claim notice, the one that had fallen near the steps. He laid it flat on the stove lid. Mei watched him touch a match to the corner. The paper curled black. That one, he said, had no place in this house. Nora leaned against Mei's side. Can we have rice tomorrow? Mei looked down at the child's upturned face. For the first time, she answered in English without practicing it in her head. Yes. Nora smiled as if a door had opened. After supper, the three of them sat on the porch while the Wyoming sky bruised purple over the hills. The wind was cold, but no one moved inside. Elias sat in the chair Clara had once used, then seemed to think better of it. He stood, carried the chair to Mei, and took the rough porch step for himself. Nora fell asleep with her head against Mei's lap. For a long while, nothing happened. Then Elias rested his hand on the porch plank, palm up, not touching her. An offer. Not a claim. Mei looked at that hand. The cracked knuckles. the burned scar near the thumb, the strength that had not become a cage. Slowly, she placed her fingers in his. Elias did not close his hand until she closed hers first. Across the yard, the burned paper lifted from the stovepipe in tiny ash flakes and disappeared into the dark. The town would still whisper. The winter would still come, the law would still understand paper better than people. But inside that small, weather-beaten house, something had changed its name. Not purchase. Not debt. Not duty. Family. And in a place built from silence, the first real promise was not spoken at all.